Well, welcome to the What Else Is New podcast. We're hot and heavy into school season. So when we start getting this time of year, we start getting the middle to end of February, I start losing all track of what's going on. So because we travel so much. And so
you lose track of us.
Yeah, lose track of us. Well, I was talking to James the other day, and we have our status for American Airlines. And we and we have the highest status American. You can't get higher, can you? I mean,
unless you get concierge key.
No, concierge key it's not a status you get. Concierge key is you have to work for American.
Hey, they get on the airplane before us.
I know, but you have to work for them to get the concierge key. So I'm not unless you want to go quit here and go work for American. You're not going to get concierge.
No,
key.
thank you.
Yeah, so because I've asked him to. So, but I asked James. I said, "Do you even worry about getting the highest status anymore?" The other day, he was like, "Nope." No. He's like, "Yeah, we travel so much now." So, well, in today's podcast, I want to talk a little bit about the new Elyte, and then maybe a little about the ERC Soft. A couple of the new products that came up with Callaway, and we are now about 3 to 4 weeks into the Elyte being out in the field. And the Elyte obviously became very popular. Obviously, it's the top rated club out there. Golf Digest gave it 15 out of 15 stars. They rate it as a top product again. Callaway's won the last few years just because of their technology and playability and everything else. And when Golf Digest does their rankings, they look at a lot of different things. They do it by independent. They get basically the way Golf Digest, and James can correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but when Golf Digest does the rankings, they bring independent golfers in. They put them on a range, all different levels of handicap. I mean, it's like from guys that just beginning to scratch players to the majority of the golfers are 10, 15, 20 handicap golfers there. And they put all these different products up on the range. And it's everything. It's like everything from Callaway to Ping to TaylorMade to Titleist, everybody. I think they have 15 or 20 major manufacturers they deal with.
Yeah, and they go by what club make. They'll do drivers,
right.
And they'll do
right. And it's actually a big deal when you're a new club in the golf industry. It's a big deal to get your club rated by Golf Digest, because like there's a lot of club manufacturers that don't get rated because they're just not big enough. And so Golf Digest, you have to be a certain size, but they do a lot. And then what they do is that they get the players hitting golf balls, and when they do this, they have good golf balls out there. I mean, it's set up very, very well. And then they give them questionnaires, and they rate them by looks, they rate them by playability, by feel, and then they do independent testing on these things. And so they have like 15 different categories they do, and they cover a lot.
Yep.
And in each category, if you don't pass it or you don't do well, they don't give you a star in that category. Number one, so they have a star rating. And the last few years, Callaway's been 15 out of 15 stars, so they've topped every one of these ratings. And then the other thing is that they actually rate them compared to the other companies. And they've won that also, haven't they?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically what it comes down to is Callaway with their AI technology, the engineering of the product has just really surpassed everything. And the one thing, I said this in a webinar the other day and it kind of freaked people out. Callaway, you take the top 5 other companies, and you guys all don't know the names out there, but the top 5 other manufacturers in the research and development, the amount of money they put into research and development, which is a lot. Callaway has put more into their research and development than their top 5 put together. Am I right, James?
Yep.
And
it's not only what they test, it's who they have testing it,
right?
Who they get their data from,
right?
And it's not your average college player. Right. It's not your average store player. It's you and me, and it's
real players,
guys that are on the range.
And that's what they call it. They say the data they put in this AI computer, which was a $500 million computer. And now they just feed it with data upon data upon data. Because remember, you can have an AI computer sitting there, but if you don't put data into it, it's just a box.
Paperweight.
It's just a paperweight sitting there. Well, it's a little bigger than a paperweight, but it's just sitting there. But what they do is 24/7, they put data in, and it's been real players' data. And when they mean by real players, they told us that 95% of the data they put into this for the AI is players that have like a 10, 15, 20, 25 handicap. Yeah. So now there is the college players, there's the pros that they've also put the data in there, but the majority of it is real players' data is what they call it.
Yeah, so what they take off of when they're doing the fitting days, or they're doing demo days, fitting days. Anybody that goes into their fitting labs that they've got across the country.
We get data here. I mean, they get data. We even get data here when we work on Top Tracer and we do different things at our academy. We're always pulling data. And when you do Top Tracer, when you've got the TrackMan, when you got the other pulling data, and they're saying, okay, where are they hitting it on the face? Where are they hitting it high? Where are they hitting it low? How are they missing it here? When they're hitting this distance, what are they doing? And they're constantly putting this data in and analyzing this data. And then the second thing they did which was very interesting, was that in the past, when you made a club, whether it was a driver, fairway wood, an iron, whatever, you come up with an idea, you'd mold the club, and then you'd send it overseas to get the mold made. And then they'd send it back, and then you test it, you test it, you test it. And even up until a couple of years ago, you might be able to go through 3, 4, 5 different molds a year, and that was a lot to be able to test it with the amount of testing you did. Now they have the ability with 3D printers to actually make this in-house.
Yep.
And they actually can make this in Callaway. And that's beyond cool. So they can actually, when they say how many driver heads they go through this last year?
It was a crazy number.
It was like 70.
That's what I think the number was, 70-ish.
I want to say, I'm looking over James' shoulder here. I'm looking at our big monitor here with the driver on it. And it's really cool. It's really cool. And it shows how like 3D casting and so on. But I think they went through 70 different
different heads.
Yeah. And we're talking huge changes. Like they tweak something on the top, they tweak something on the bottom, they tweak something on the side, they tweak the back weights, they tweak the sole plate.
They tweak a metal.
Yeah,
they change a metal.
100%. And so they went through 70 different casting last year. So they went from going through 4 or 5 in a year to 70 last year. So you can imagine, the technology they get to put in these clubs is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about it. So it's been real life now, and we've talked about some of this in the past webinars. So tell me right now, James, what you're seeing. You're seeing guys, you're testing them out in the field. I mean, you're fitting them in the field.
Yep.
You've been doing some schools with them now. We've got hundreds of golfers now, hundreds of our alumni, of our students, of our public out there that have got clubs built from us, the new Elyte in their hands. What are we hearing? What are we seeing from them? What are we getting back feedback?
Driver wise, they're seeing distance, and it's not a significant distance overall. Right. What they're seeing is because of the tighter dispersion, the shots are hitting the fairway now.
Right.
So instead of seeing it being 20 yards offline and 15 yards short, now it's 5 yards offline and it's 15 yards further
and I
than
think,
the other one.
And here's what's interesting. I think it's hard to describe this on a podcast, but it's the best thing I ever heard was when I talked to an engineer about this one time. He said, think about something here. Think about if you hit a slice and went 20 yards to the right. It doesn't just go straight right. It bends to the right. So think about like a bending to the right, or like for a right-handed player of a slice. So think of like a rope that's like bending to the right. Okay. Yep. So now it's like a candy cane, but candy cane's bad because it come back towards you, but it's like a bend of a candy cane. Okay. Now take that and straighten it out some. Now, don't make the
end of that rope and just
straighten it out. Now don't make it dead straight because it doesn't go from a hard slice to dead straight, but make it less slice. So go instead of a 20-yard slice, it turns into a 5-yard slice or a 5-yard push. Well, that end of that rope isn't going to go just 210 yards. It's going to go 220, 230.
Yep.
So what happens is that when you see the numbers, you say, okay, I got 5 yards further with just pure numbers, maybe a mile an hour faster with the ball speed and the club head speed. But it's not that. It's the dispersion's better.
Yeah. Where is it? Right. Where is that distance?
And that's the biggest thing that you see in this technology by the real players' data is they made the dispersion better. And that's the first thing I saw.
Yeah.
When I pulled out my driver, the toe and the heel hits were less severe. And everybody has them. Everybody has them. And they're less severe going offline, which means the overall distance is going to be longer.
Yeah. And they're back in play. Okay. They're not out of play.
So we're seeing drivers. We're seeing some improvement in the drivers, definitely. So it's a good driver. Now that you're talking compared to the smoke. So you're talking, a little better compared to the smoke, compared to the Rogues or the Max or the clubs or the drivers from not just Callaway, but ones from like 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Now you're talking a significant difference.
Now a significant difference. Yeah.
In distance.
Right. Significant distance. So if somebody called you right now and said, how often shall I replace my driver? What would you say?
Every 2 generations.
Every 2 generations. Now, and I say the same thing, except I will say do it as much as possible because you keep the value of the driver up.
Yeah. If you're looking at trading in, then it's any opportunity you see something new.
Yeah. Because you can keep a value so high. It's like we talk about like a lease in a car. You keep that value up really, really high. So when you get that new product in, you're paying minimal for that new product. So
it's like we talked about the other day. It's like they come up with a new phone. How quick do you start salivating over there's a new phone?
Yeah.
And they entice you saying, well, here, I'll give you a great trade value on this phone if you got one upgrade. I mean, if you have the means, same thing.
Right. So talk about some of the clubs in the bag. Talk about fairway woods. What do you think about the fairway woods?
They're phenomenal.
Yeah.
We were talking about this the other day in the shop. It's the best fairway wood that I've hit in 15 years. And it's hot. It's hot, but the contact is different because of the way the sole is built on these ones. The center of gravity is that much lower and you get much better contact with the ball and it just jumps off the face.
Well, if you look at the fairway wood, and we're talking on a podcast here, but you look at the bottom of it, there's a lot of weight that's put on the bottom of this and towards the front.
Yes.
And they've done very, very lot of work in getting that weight to the front and to the bottom of that sole.
And the back is relieved. That's what I found intriguing is they took the back of the sole off the ground. So it almost sits on the ground like an iron. That's the crazy part. It does.
So when you set this thing down and you get it, you see that back relief. It's really good now. It's got a lot of back relief. It's really nice. Yeah. So the fairway woods are hot.
Yeah.
And they're really hot.
I'm waiting to see what the next one that's coming out.
I'll tell you what I'm seeing now, and it's interesting, but I'm getting guys are getting entire bags and they're getting like a driver. The typical bag we do in here is a driver, like a 5-wood, 4 and 5 hybrid, sometimes a 6 hybrid, 7-iron through the wedges. And I'm getting guys who are getting this 5-wood in their bag and they're like, oh my Lord. And they're like going, I'm going to try 7-wood instead of 4 hybrid. I'm going to try a 9-wood instead of 5 hybrid because these are so hot. Every club that comes out every year has different characteristics. There's some, like when Smoke came out, the hybrids tended to be a little bit hotter in different things. But on these Elyte, it's the fairway woods. There's no doubt those fairway woods are hot.
Yeah.
No. So the fairway woods are really not hybrids. Talk about the hybrids themselves because they're really good. But the cool thing of the hybrids is what?
The adjustability.
Yeah. They majorly for everything. I'm talking all.
Yeah.
Past years, you pay a little extra for the hybrids or just the players hybrids. The non-forgiving ones are adjustable. Now you have adjustability in the neck, which adjusts for little loft and lie.
Little bit of loft.
Lie angle.
More importantly, lie.
Lie, which can be 2 up to 2 down, everything in between. And then you got the weighting on the back. And you can actually do some weight adjustments in the back. And we just did a little club chat about that. We talked about the correctability versus about correcting it versus actually getting it built for you.
Yeah.
When a hybrid or any club in your bag is sent to you from us or from Callaway, we get it built for you. It is built perfect for you and your single plane swing. You do not have to do anything to that club except pull it out of the wrapper and hit it. It's ready to go. So what happens in that club? So you don't need to pull any of the weights out. You adjust the neck. It's done. It's set. Everything from the weighting to the adjustability of the lie to everything has been fit for you. Perfect. Okay. Now there is weights in the back of this. Okay. In this hybrid, let's talk about this for a second.
Okay.
So let's say a guy right now is going out there and he's slicing this hybrid. Okay? Or he's just hitting this hybrid and he just slices the ball. Okay. It's not just this hybrid. He's just okay. And he's going to go to Phoenix tomorrow and play with his buddies for a week, but he's slicing his hybrids. What can he do in that club? What can he do now in these hybrids? What can he do?
The first thing I would do is just switch the weights over, put the heavier weight towards the heel.
Right. So there's 2 weights in there.
Yep.
And you can flip the weight, put the heavier weight towards the heel, the lighter weight towards the toe, and that will actually set a draw bias in your hybrid. Now, we don't want that draw bias in there forever. That's for sure. But you can use it for correctability, for immediacy for right now.
For short term.
Now, go play in those 3 or 4 rounds in Phoenix, or that important round you got tomorrow, or whatever it is. And then when you come back, flip the weights back, make a note somewhere, because when you work on your swing, I don't want that draw bias in that club. No. Because guys, there's not draw bias in your irons. There's not going to be draw bias in your fairways. It's going to be in that club. Okay. We don't want that. Okay. So we want to get it taken out, but you can do that correctability.
Yes.
That it's almost like cramming for the test. Okay. Am I right? Yeah. So it is. And you kind of fix it for that last second, but don't leave it that way.
Yeah.
We want to bring it back to the way you get it built proper to work on your single plane swing.
Yep.
So, all right. So the hybrids are good. You like
hybrids are good. Love them.
Talk about the irons a little bit.
Lots of different models. Okay. Really, we've got it broken down as to whether you take a divot or not.
Right.
I think is the first dividing factor right now. If you make a divot, we're going to put you in the Elyte. If you don't make a divot, we're going to take something with a little bit wider sole, a little bit more peripheral weighting on it, a little bit more weighting down low on the club below the equator of the ball. So we're looking at the HL. And for those that don't have a fast swing speed, we're going to be at the max fast.
And that's the biggest thing, because when you look at this and we set these things up, we're getting something that works for you. And the biggest thing that we see with our players, especially with our players that get a little bit older, is number one, they don't make much divot. Okay. In fact, over 70% of our players claim when they do the fitting form to make no divot, but they make minimal to no divot. And obviously when we see them hit balls, or when you're hitting balls, not hitting that optimal height. And when they're not hitting that optimal height for the hybrid, or in particular the iron, what happens if you don't hit the optimal or the height they need to hit for an iron? What happens, James?
2 things, reduced carry distance and increased roll on the other end. So anything that's coming in low is going to have a very shallow descent angle. So it's going to land and it's going to roll out, and it won't stop.
So it's going to do exactly. So you're going to lose distance and you're going to get too much roll. So when you're hitting those irons into the green, they're not going as far as they should go. And when they hit the green, they're going to roll. That's the last thing you want. So that's what irons is all about. And I know that's being very simplistic, But the way that Elyte is set up, and they've done this, and this is the beauty of what Callaway does, is they give you many options. Is they have what's called the HL, which is high launch. It's HL, that's what it means. And the HL is primarily, and what we set it up for is guys who make minimal to no divot and need extra height in the ball flight. And then they have what's called the Max Fast. And the Max Fast is an HL head that's lighter. And talk about that a little bit, James.
It's just a weight issue. The overall components of the head. The head is lighter. The shaft is going to be slightly lighter.
Right.
And that allows the person with a slower swing speed a more controllable club that may allow them to swing it a little bit faster.
Right.
And they get a little bit faster. Ball flies a little bit higher, flies a little bit further.
And who are we going to recommend those Max Fast for? So tell me who we're going to recommend Max Fast for.
A lot of our ladies are going to be playing the Max Fast, and a lot of our seniors that just don't swing the club very fast.
Right. So I kind of look at the cutoff here, and I talk to you guys individually about it, but if your 9 iron's going 90 yards or less, and you obviously can't hit a 6 iron, you're hitting a 6 hybrid, maybe like 130 yards or less, and you're really struggling to get those distances, and your driver, you don't hit 200 yards with your driver anymore. You're definitely, no doubt about it, going to the Max Fast.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that individually. Now, why wouldn't everybody be in the Max Fast? Why wouldn't you just stick every senior player in the Max Fast? Why would we not?
There comes a tipping point where the club is too light that you just can't control it.
Right. And also, remember, there's distance of a golf ball is speed times mass. Okay.
Yeah.
It's mass, speed, and then obviously the technique of hitting the golf ball, but it's mass of that head, speed of impact. So let's say, think about it. It's real simple. Think about it. If you took a feather and you swung at 100 miles an hour and hit a golf ball, how far would it go? Now you took a sledgehammer and you swung at 100 miles an hour, how far is it going to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I know that's as far off the spectrum as you can get, but that's kind of a good way to think about it. If you take something very, very light and you swing it, okay, and you hit a golf ball, okay, what's going to happen? Well, but there's a certain point where you don't swing it fast enough, and a lighter club will help you because you will swing it a little bit. So then the speed will increase a little bit, which will help make up for that mass.
Yeah.
And that's why James called it the tipping point. I love that.
Yeah.
And I look at it from, since you're hitting shots, but also about, I'm not going to say age, speed, which is distance to hit shots, also body issues. Let's say you got really bad arthritis, or you got, really chronic bad back, or whatever it is. Maybe a little bit lighter material will help you.
Yep.
But a majority of our students are going to be an HL head, obviously graphite shafting, but to top that off, and when we talked about the irons, the hybrids, fairwoods, and so on in the bag, I'm going to ask James this because I'm the one that preaches this all the time. And I'm going to throw it James's way right now. How important is the fit, James?
It's critical,
okay.
Especially with your irons. It comes down to protection of the body. Number one, if you're toe digging, heel digging, you're going to add all that extra torque that goes into your wrists, elbows, shoulders, sometimes your back. So from a twisting standpoint, it's going to hurt.
Right.
From a playability standpoint, anytime you heel dig, toe dig, the shot feels terrible.
Right.
And all of a sudden you get a bad feeling, or you get a bad response back from the club. Now you're going to start making changes. You start getting away from what we're trying to teach you. And now you're in this vicious circle of, do I constantly chase the equipment, or should I just have the equipment that fits me perfectly? And then I can worry about my technique. I know that the equipment is right. Right.
Now let's talk for a second here, because we just did a webinar. We did a webinar, and then we did some club chat. Mm-hmm. And it was very interesting because I knew this would be a good topic for our podcast. Talk about, and one of the big things we're seeing right now on the smoke irons in particular is the guys
the Elyte irons.
What's that?
The Elyte
irons compared to the smoke, compared to the other ones, but sorry, the Elyte irons is they're talking about the feel.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk, but here's the deal. They're relating feel to sound.
Yes.
And I want you to talk about that a little bit, James. Talk about how you relate feel to sound, and then about the big thing with these Elyte irons. What's going on with
that? Players equate sound. They equate the softer, like a muted thud versus a hard click. I guess it's the easiest way to describe it.
That's how I like that. Yeah.
And the click is typically your cast clubs. It's a hard feeling. It's a harsh feeling.
Right.
Versus a soft muted thud.
Right.
Is what you would typically see on the forged clubs.
Right.
And that is a more pleasing sound to a better player.
Right.
Now I'll say better to player, but there's guys out there, there's players out there that like the sound of the click.
Right. Right.
It's there.
Right.
But the majority is that soft muted thud, and the engineers start putting that in. The engineers start working with materials and dampening sounds and vibrations within the head to create that sound.
Right.
And for the most part, well, not for the most part, all of these Elytes sound like they are a high-end forged.
Yeah, they do. And they've worked very, very, very hard on getting that sound on there, which then relates to, I love the feel of these clubs.
And it's, I did not personally, this is me looking at the smoke. I love the shape of the smoke irons.
Right.
I like the performance of the smoke
they were great
irons.
performance.
Yeah. I didn't like the sound of them.
That was the biggest thing in the smoke. And when you ask the engineers at Callaway, what's the biggest difference between the Elyte and the smoke? They'll sit there and say, well, they did a little bit of playability in the head. They did a little bit of distance, but the biggest thing is the sound. As they said, and so they try to get a softer feel, but they do by sound.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. And we hear this conversation all the time, especially when you talk to engineers about this, but they'll say, if you take a player and you put earmuffs on them, so they can't hear anything, and they have them hit shots it can be with a putter to a wedge to an iron, they can't really tell the way the new technology is. They really can't tell a difference. And they sit there and say, does that one feel softer? Does this one feel softer? Is this one harder? They really don't know a difference. Now, when you do a different golf ball, they feel a different golf ball. They feel it immediately, but the iron, they don't. No. But then you take those earphones off them and they all of a sudden go, this is the hard one. This is the soft one. This is, and it's because it's the sound they're hearing.
Yeah.
And so they relate feel and sound.
Yeah. It's funny because you'll have them with the earphones on. And I've seen this where they're hitting the shots and all of a sudden they go, I love this club. Yeah. And they're hitting it. The performance is doing everything they want to do. They take the earmuffs off and all of a sudden you get the sound. They go, oh, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, put that away. Take that away. I don't want that one.
But that's what we're seeing. So we're getting some really good reviews. We're getting guys we've actually had guys who made holes ones with it already. We had a gentleman make it with a 9-iron there. They made I think like 140 yards, just a long 9-iron he hit. But so we got guys out there playing the Elyte and doing really, really well with it. So to kind of end this podcast here, kind of give it overall. So it's been just a few weeks, but James has had him in hand. I've had mine in hand now for a little bit. We've had a lot of players, a lot of golfers out there. A lot of our students have had them in hand. I'm kind of giving an overall feel what you're seeing with these, because I like to get the first impressions, first feel. What's the first impressions, first feels you get from this, James, with the new Elyte?
Guys are loving the fact that the dispersion is tighter across the board. Irons all the way through the fairway woods. The biggest thing we're getting on the fairway woods is the fact that they are longer,
right,
and the drivers are straighter.
Right.
And that straightness in the drivers creating overall distance. If you took a straight shot after straight shot, am I getting significant? 5-7 yards maybe. Well, but once you straighten it out, it's significant.
On testing Callaway did with a guy who hits 100 miles an hour, or a person who hits 100 miles an hour, they got 8 yards further across the club face with the compared to the smoke.
Yep.
So when they did the Elyte compared to the smoke, they got 8 yards further, and that was hits across the club face. Okay, from toe to heel across the middle. And that was just random testing. Yeah. Now, for the average player, it's probably 5 to 6 yards further than smoke. But if, like we talked about, and I love that the perception, if you bring the dispersion in and you lessen the dispersion, then you do what? You actually see more significant increase in distance.
Yeah. It's funny because you and I both had different responses to the bag of clubs.
Right.
When I put them in my hand, my immediate feedback was, oh my God, these fairway woods are unbelievable.
Right.
And when our rep brought the clubs in, we were hitting them. It's the second time I've seen you get excited over a new iron. Because you don't change irons very often.
No, I don't.
And you had just put the TI Fusion in your hands and you were hitting these new Elyte, and you looked up at our rep and said, why the heck didn't you show me these things 2 months earlier?
Yeah, well, they were now.
I know they were now, but I mean, you got really excited over these new irons, and they are unbelievable.
And the other thing I also liked in the driver was that, I'm always looking for that height in the
it's your struggle.
It just seemed that this driver got that height easier. I mean, so which means that to me, this driver had a little bit of a lower center of gravity than some of the past years ones. All really good, but this one, it's a little small things, but that hitting that launch window was a little bit easier on this one.
The spin rate is down on these.
Yeah. So which means they're going to go for it when they can,
which means they're going to carry further. They're going to roll a bit.
So cool. Well, I wanted to throw that out to you guys. I wanted to be able to talk to you guys a little bit about the new Elyte out there. I'm going to kind of tease the next podcast we're going to do, but the next one with the ERC Soft, the release of the new ball just got released. And it was when we went out and spoke with Callaway and went and met with the engineers, it was literally the thing they were the most excited about. It was crazy how excited they were about this ball.
It's fun to watch a nerd freak out.
No, it was interesting because you got the Chrome Soft, you got the Chrome Tour, you got the Chrome Tour X, and different deals out there. And so you got this whole line of golf balls. When you went and talked to these golf ball guys, you're expecting them to talk about the high-end golf ball. They immediately went and start talking about this ERC Soft. And we're going to have an offer to you guys here shortly. But It's a phenomenal golf ball, and the spin rate.
We've been testing it.
Yeah, we've been
individually. We've been testing,
and that's why it'll be the next podcast, because we just got them in and we're doing our own independent testing in house here, and we're starting to see some really positive reaction to it. Mm-hmm. And so I want to get a little bit warmer weather for a few days here. I want to get these things out and tested with them, and then we're going to get a podcast of this new EFC soft, because I think it's going to be really, really cool and really good for you guys out there. But anyway, so we good, James?
We are.
All right. So thank you guys for joining us for this podcast, and then we'll talk to you guys real soon.